Awesome. Thank you so much for telling me that. Thank you. Thank you. I had it on mute while I was getting everything ready. So sorry about that. Thank you all for being here. I'm Elizabeth, the owner of Flowers Talk Tivoli, and we are going to be making our winter planter together. So I do have everybody on mute just so that we have a clean recording and you can have your own conversations in the background. We don't have to worry about your kids and your dogs and all that barking, even though you'll probably hear mine asking for dinner shortly. So before we get started, I would ask everyone to head on over to their sink, fill your container about halfway with or just room temperature water, and then come on back and we will get started with our winter planter. So I'll see you in a minute. And when you're back, if you can just say ready or hi, just so I know that those that are here live, I'm not going ahead and starting without you. Okay, so whenever you're ready, if you just want to let me know that you're back and you're ready to go so that I don't get ahead. Perfect. Okay. And Joanne, are you good? Okay. Well, we will. Okay, so where your container here, you do have it filled halfway or three-quarters of the way with water. Perfect. So good, Joanne. I just didn't want to go ahead. So I'd like you to take your bricks of Oasis. Mine have already been soaking, but we're going to put them in sideways, and it's going to be a little tight, but you're going to get them in there. They're going to fit. And we're going to push those down. And it's okay, it pushes out your container a little bit. This is just going to make sure your greens are really, really nice and solid in there. And mine are a little, slightly off center from each other, but that's okay. At the end of this, when you're done, you're going to fill this whole thing up with water again before you put it outside. But this is just to give us our base to start working with. When you do the other two blocks the other way, I found sometimes it can be a little wobbly for people. So I just wanted to make sure that it's nice and solid in there. And it is okay that it's kind of making it a little bit of an oval shape. So I'm just going to explain the different parts of your kit so you know all the beautiful greens that are in here. So we have a mix of greens, but we're starting with our bucket here. So this is just super simple to work with because we're not going to put it in soil where you're going to have to keep topping up your planter with water with freeze thaw, freeze thaw. Yes, two blocks. Yeah, only put two blocks in there. And you're going to put them in lengthwise as opposed to we usually put them in the other way, but it was just wasn't working for me. So I did it this way and this will work out really well also. So it'll be nice and structured. So the thing with this is that because there isn't drainage in the bottom of it, we can keep our greens nice and saturated so they'll last all the way through the season for us. If we're putting them straight into soil, you just have to be mindful of filling it up with water because our outdoor containers usually have drainage in them. So the soil can dry out really, really easily after a couple of warm, beautiful days. So this will freeze everything together and then our greens are going to stay really nice and tight in there. So the greens in your kits, there's nothing in here that has any sap or anything like that, so it's not going to be sticky. You do have quite a bit of fragrance, which is really fantastic. So this bunch here is one of my favorites. This is called Carolina Sapphire. It has kind of that blue green, kind of sage color to it, which is really nice. It's going to give us a really nice texture in there, a really nice color. It does have sometimes like these little tiny seed pods on them. It's very like light and lacy, really, really pretty greenery. Love that. Has a nice peppery fragrance too, which is great. There's also the Douglas fir. So Douglas fir is going to give us like our bulk of our arrangement. It's going to be like the meat and potatoes of our beautiful planter. It's going to give us our size, whereas all the other greens, except for the cedar, is going to give us more depth and more color. So the Douglas fir is going to be a really nice kind of bulky green in there. And then, of course, beautiful red dogwood, which I love. That's going to give us some nice height in there. We have the magnolia, which is a really pretty kind of like suede brown on the one side, a dark green on the other. This will curl up a little bit when it gets cold and it's in your planter. It still will hold its color really, really nicely. It'll just curl up a little bit, but you'll be able to see the two-tone when it does curl up. So that nice dark green and that nice kind of like flopped suede brown. So really pretty, gives some nice, again, depth into our arrangement. It helps with the size, but it's not like the filler, right? And then our faux berries. So these can be used from year to year. So at the end of the season, pop those out, protect them, put them in your garage or your basement, and these will last you for years as long as they're protected. And then one of our other absolute favorites, this is our BC cedar. So beautiful, really, really good size. This is going to give us some really nice height. It has a really nice sweep to it. So it's going to be really pretty to give us all the depth that we're looking for in our arrangement. So when you're looking at making your planter, it's best to decide before where you're going to place it. So will you be placing it in a spot that everybody will see all the way around it? So is it on like a walkway where you would see it from the front door coming up to it as well as leaving? Is it something that's going to be put up beside your door where it's going to be right up against, the exterior of your home? Do you need height? Do you not need height? Do you need it to go wide? Do you need it to go narrow? So think about your space of where you're going to be placing this. So for instance, if I was to place this at a front door where there's not a lot of space between the door and the wall, or the other exterior wall there. So maybe it has like 2 feet. So I would make sure that I wouldn't be going over that size so it's not encroaching on my entrance to my door. If I wanted it to be somewhat taller, then I'd work most of my greens up here. Again, if you're doing something where the wall is right on the back, we'll still put some greens on the back there, but I'd like you to focus on the pretty things at the front as opposed to putting the beautiful magnolia at the back that's going to be against the wall that no one's going to see anyway. And we want to get some really nice texture in there. And I'm going to show you some ways to get some different dimension so that it's not just staggering in layers of greenery. Like for instance, we're not going to just take and put one type of greenery at the back, then a next, then a next. We want it to have some really nice texture and flow to it. So for the one that I'm making this evening, I'm going to make it so that it is the same all the way around. Not exact same, but within reason, going to be all the way around. So I will keep turning my arrangement as I work. If you are doing one again, that the wall is right behind, focus mostly on the front, still put some greens on the back. We don't want it to be too top heavy, but then this container will then just be popped into hopefully just your prettier container, or if not, the plain bucket works really well also, or into some type of summer planter that you have that can last through the holiday season. So we're going to start with our Douglas fir. So Douglas fir is a messier of a green. It will drop some needles. That's completely normal. Once it is in place, they'll be fine, but you will notice a little bit of scattering of the needles. That's just kind of the nature of that green, but it holds really well right through until the spring. So you're just going to cut the elastic off the bottom of your Douglas fir. So that's the first one we're starting with is Douglas fir. We will be working with the whole bunches at a time. So we will go from the Douglas fir to the cedar to the magnolia to the Carolina. So we're not going to be working with all four different types of greenery at once. It's going to be a lot easier for us to do one type of green, then move on to the next type of green, then move on to the next type of green. So just take your bunch apart. You'll see, Mother Nature, some has a little bit of, quirkiness to it. Some of them might be shorter, some of them might be longer. So just separate those and find your tallest pieces. So ideally, if you can find your three tallest pieces, they do not need to be the exact same height, but separate your three tallest pieces. And then unlike regular floral design, we don't need to strip off all of the leaves that are going into the floral foam, but we do need to strip off a little bit so that we can get at least 2 to 3 inches of our stem into our foam. So for instance, you'll see I have some little pieces here. I will just cut those off, but I'm not going to go in and start, picking off every single needle or things like that. You do also want to give your greens a cut so that you're opening up as much of that stem as you can, and it's giving us a nice sharp edge to put into our floral foam. This allows our greens to drink when we're putting it in now, and then also keep getting hydrated. So it's almost like when our skin, when we get a cut or a scratch, we start to heal over fairly quickly. The same thing with flowers and greenery and things like that. We want to open up that stem so that it can get that water again. When you're placing your greenery in your floral foam, it's best to have an idea of where you're going to place it, because if you put your stem in, take it out, put your stem in, take it out, you'll compromise the structure of your floral foam, and then it will turn into like almost like a chunky mess in there, and it won't hold all your greens. So have a bit of an idea of where you're going to place them. So I'm starting with my 3 tallest Douglas fir, and I'm going to place those in the middle of my container, but I am going to put them in the middle, but I'm putting them pointed out. So if you want to see how I do the first 3, so again, I'm cutting off just those little tiny guys at the bottom. Those are great to keep, to be able to put in a little vase in your bathroom so you get that nice fragrance, or if they're long enough, you can still put them in the bottom of your planter. So as you can see, I'm putting 3 in the middle, but I'm putting them kind of triangled off from each other. So it's giving us our height and it's giving us our size. So push those down so they're nice and solid, so that they're really going to be in there nice and tight. So that's what I'm doing with my first 3 pieces of Douglas fir. And then all the greens are usually bundled together by weight. So you might have some larger pieces, you might have some smaller pieces. So my smaller pieces, which aren't really that small, I'm going to then put in kind of the sides of my planter. If you have a decorative pot that is quite a bit larger than the 12-inch of the plastic bucket here, you'll want to go a little bit wider so that you're covering up that lip between the plastic pot and your decorative container. But with the Douglas fir, also we're thinking about where we're placing this. So maybe you don't want to go too wide. Maybe you want to focus, mostly on going taller with it. So again, it's completely up to you. Little pieces like this, I'm going to place at the bottom. They don't need to go in 2 inches of green, just as long as they're in that green foam. then it doesn't have to go in too deep, but you just want them to be able to touch that so that when you fill that up with water, it's going to freeze and it will seal in all the moisture for you. And this takes up some space, so feel free to keep turning it and moving it as you go. Then I have some little pieces here that, I may just keep aside, put in a little vase. So that will be your whole bunch of Douglas fir before we move on to our cedar. And I will need a good vacuum after this. So if I was to be putting this somewhere where it was a little bit narrower, then these pieces here, I will put those probably more upright so that they're not as kind of swoopy as they're doing. The first bunch of green always looks a little awkward, but wait until you put in everything and it just comes together so beautifully. I did a couple of in-person workshops today, and I love that everybody was given the exact same kit, but all the arrangements were completely different, and everybody was so proud of them, and they were absolutely beautiful. They were simply stunning. So once we've done our Douglas fir, we're going to move on to our BC cedar. So we order all of our winter greens in August. This really helps our suppliers, help the family farms be able to know where things are being sent to, how much to cut, and things like that. So BC cedar is one of the greens that actually sells out the quickest. And so that's why we always pre-order. And so sometimes if people don't pre-order, the only one available would be the Ontario cedar, which of course everything from Ontario is beautiful, but the cedar looks like a hedge. So it's very droopy, it's more yellow, it's more flat, it's not as pretty as the beautiful BC cedar that we love. This is a staple in all of our planters. They're just so pretty. And so again, this goes by weight. So you could have 5 stems in your bunch. You could have 4. So it looks like I have 4 here. So as far as placing yeah, 4 and 2 little guys here. So as far as placing my cedar, I'm going to put those 3 of them again at the top, but arched out a little bit or angled out a little bit so they're not sticking directly up. Like I'm not putting a Christmas tree right into the center of my pots. I'm arching these out so that they are it's got more texture, it's more three-dimensional, it's not as, it's not flat like some of the ones you see at some of the big box stores where they're just done in rows. This gives us a really nice texture, and they're very lush. These are gonna be very juicy when you're done. And again, I have some pieces like this are great to be able to put around the bottom of your planter so that they're kind of cascading over, which always looks really nice. There's no point in taking those little pieces and putting it to the center of your planter. They're just going to get lost. So if you can get those somehow on the ends or on the edges, sorry. I do some bright lights, so it's making my coloring look a little wonky here, but we're getting there. These go outside of the first greens. I put a little bit, so I put them kind of in between so that we're not gonna, and another one in the center, so you're not gonna have a big hole in the center. So I have one of my cedar up here, and then one of my cedar is kind of at the same height as my noble fir. So they're all kind of around the same height and the same width, but it's just bringing in the different texture of the cedar and breaking it up from the noble fir. Sorry, no, not noble, Douglas fir. And just make sure those greens are nice and snug in there. They will freeze and seal in the moisture, but you don't want them to be sliding around. Can be a little frustrating when you go to put your other greens in. So even like that, it's already super full. So the next one we're going to do is, I think it's just we do the magnolia next. So the magnolia, I suggest sitting it a little bit lower in your arrangement. It's not the tallest green by any means, but it adds the most depth and it breaks up all the different shades of green in here really nicely. So I'll show you what I do with the magnolia. And again, this is by weight. So you may have 5 stems, you may have 6 stems in there. So 2, 4. So I have 6 stems, but 2 of them are kind of smaller. And that one's a little bit smaller. So I'll choose my tallest. And if you're doing this so that your arrangement is the same all the way around, then I would suggest if you have 5 stems or 6, if you could put one a little in the center and then do 4 around the edges, that would be really nice because then it keeps that consistency of that deep, rich color in there. If you're doing this where it's up against the house, then I would suggest choosing the front of your arrangement, so that which is going to be like your front facing, and deciding where your magnolia would go there. So for instance, if this was my arrangement and I was choosing my front, then I would probably choose this side here to be my front, and I would focus my magnolia like on the sides, in the front, and in here, as opposed to putting any of that really pretty magnolia in the back of your arrangement. That's not going to be seen anyway. So I would take those pieces and I would put, you know, like this and like this, and then down in here. Oh, that one's broken. This one, like kind of down in here and down in here, so that you're focusing the magnolia on the front of your arrangement. But because I'm doing mine all the way around, I need one in the center. I think I cut it. And once you place it outside too, if you see a piece that's like, kind of seems a little wonky or things like that, you can always give that a trim. If you do want to give it a trim, I would suggest going into the stem and cutting it. So for instance, if it was this piece here, I would go in and I would cut it probably about here, so that I'm not just leaving a stem with no leaves on it in my arrangement. So it looks a lot more natural. I would suggest waiting until you go outside and place this before you do that. Especially in the daylight, it's much easier to take a look, and then you'll know if you need to move something around or if you have to trim something a little bit for your space. This feels better. This one here is the one that's causing me some questioning. Seems a little crazy. So that's your Douglas fir in there. That is your BC cedar, your magnolia. And then our last green we will put in is our Carolina sapphire. So you can see how full this is, right? Just like yours, nice and full. And then the last thing we will put in is our Carolina sapphire. So these come to us again, right, by weight. I feel like I keep saying that because we never know exactly how many stems. So if I say like put 5 stems and you're like, I only got 4, it's just because some of them might be a little fuller than others. They usually try to keep them as consistent as possible for us, which I appreciate. So this has that nice arch to it. So we want to use that to our advantage. So by doing that, we want to play with our shape so that not all of our pieces we're putting in are going like this, right? We don't want to look like a Whoville tree. We would want one to go in like this and one like this and maybe one like this so that we're balancing it and we're playing with that texture as opposed to making it look like it's been windswept by putting them all in the same direction. So some pieces are really tall. So again, you could find your 3 tallest pieces if you like. And I'm going to put 3 again in the top, but arched out. So that's one of them there. This seems really big on camera. I think it's just the way I have my computer placed, but yours probably feels really big too. And then your other smaller pieces, I would suggest placing kind of around like this. And again, if you're doing this up against the wall, then you don't have to put that in the back. As long as you've got your other greens back there for your weight, you can use these ones more at your front so that you've got that really pretty texture in there. We want to use that natural arch of these greens. I think that's half of why things can look a little maybe sometimes not appealing is when something looks confusing, then our brain usually says that it's not nice. So it's not pretty. So if a floral arrangement has too many colors or too many textures or too much variegation, sometimes it can come across as too busy, and then that can be our brain views that as is not attractive. So I've got these little pieces which, oh, your dog keeps snorting up the pine needles. I think pine's okay, as long as they're not peeing on your arrangement like it's a Christmas tree. But that's the best, right? Dogs, they just love to see like what's new, what are you doing? What's going on right now? What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? Do I need to be a part of this? Mine are having dinner right now, or else they'd be in here being like, Mom, what are we doing? What are we doing? And they're used to me talking to a computer. I find the Magnolia and the Carolina Sapphire really bring this together. The Douglas fir and the cedar, although it's pretty, it's kind of, again, like it's that bulk. I think the Carolina Sapphire, that like lacy one, and the Magnolia, I think it brings it all together. It adds the dimension, it adds the texture. I think it's really pretty. So I'm really happy when we put that in there, because even though I've made, 1 million trillion of these, it doesn't come together for me until I do have those finishing touches in there. So speaking of finishing touches, we are going to add in our dogwood and our faux berries. So depending on, again, where you're putting this, in your home, outside, so it depends on the height of your dogwood. So this is the length that it came into us. So really, really nice and tall. Absolutely love it. Very pretty red color. So you could place it right in, which is going to be quite tall depending on the lengths, or you can give it a little trim there. And these are great to add a little bit of those fairy lights to them. Nothing too bulky or too heavy for them, but you would place those again in the top in rules of 3. If you do 2, it kind of looks like an antenna, which we know what antennas are, but maybe your children do not, or grandchildren know what antennas are. So those are my 3 dogwood kind of popping out the top there. And then again, look to where your front is going to be. Your front is where you're going to place your berries. And you could also add in anything else that you had. So if you have like some shiny baubles or other type of ornaments that you want to put in there, those can be easily just wired onto like a stake, like even an old garden stake or something like that, and popped right into your planter. So I would choose the front of my arrangement to be, we're gonna go with here, and that's where I'm gonna add in my berries. Sorry for the crinkles noise. And so the berries are wired. So you can take the tag off. And you can play with them a little bit as far as, bending them out so they're not, so faux looking. And then I usually offset them. So I will do one kind of here. And then I will do one kind of here. So I'm just going to pull this back so I can see it before I put them down a little bit lower also, so a little bit deeper so that you're not seeing a lot of that artificial stem. Lola's coming over to look at the pine needles too. I know, eh, Belle? Lola Belle. Okay. I know, all the things, all the smells. Smells like outside in here. So that's where I place my berries, kind of staggered at the front. They look so nice and glossy. So again, these can be reused from year to year. If they are painted together, don't pull them apart. I've done that before, and it pulls the paint off of them, and then they can possibly crack. So just leave them the way they are like that. So for this arrangement, you will fill it up with water, or bring it outside and fill it up with water, whatever works for you. But then place it into your container. If you don't know exactly where you're placing it yet, put it outside or put it in the garage somewhere where it's going to be nice and cold so that the greens are really going to seal in that moisture. Don't want to leave it too long inside your home without it being filled up with water as well, because then the green just won't last as long. So we want to keep those as cold as possible so it lasts as long as possible. So when you do fill it up, it should freeze depending on our temperature and our snow we're supposed to get on Sunday, because that's always nice on it too. But if we do get, another big thaw or it's really, really dry, just make sure to top it up with water because we want this to last as long as possible for you. So usually this will last right through to like February, March, depending again, freezing and thawing, and how hydrated these stems are. So if you don't hydrate the stems, then the Douglas fir will lose its needles and then the cedar will get a little yellowy. So we don't want that. So we want this to last as long as possible so that you're protecting the investment in your beautiful creation. So pop that outside, fill it up with water, and put it on display and show everybody how much of a floral designer you are, and you created something really, really beautiful. And the fragrance is delicious. I absolutely love it. I'm sure your place smells like the holidays right now. But this is definitely the great workshop to get us started with our outdoor decor, especially with the weather that's coming up. So thank you very much. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. I loved doing in-person classes today. That was super fun. So we're going to do some more of those at Fieldhouse Events, which is right across from us at the flower shop. So it's at 303 Richmond. So if you'd like to do something in person, then by all means, take a look at the website. I'm doing a wreath one and I'm doing a centerpiece one. We're also doing those virtually because sometimes the comfort of home and being with your family and creating something beautiful works better for you. So I completely understand. I am doing the in-person ones during the day because it just makes life easier for me with driving out of town and stuff like that. So thank you for being here. I appreciate you. I can't wait to see your pictures. So if you have pictures of it all set up on your porch or at your walkway, send it off to me so I can cheer you on and tell you how beautiful it is. And until next time, I'll see you soon and have a good night. Thank you so much.